The Dark Knight trilogy truly stands alongside some of the greatest film trilogies ever made.
And to get straight to the point, Batman Begins is the 5th Batman movie, but the first one to get it right, to get it absolutely right.
Every other point that you made, I think, is utterly ridiculous. This movie was an A movie.
And made box office history.
Every film is a labor of love for Nolan and his production team, who fully commit to a standard of quality that very few comic book films have reached.
I'm smarter. I'm better. I am better!
However, as with most films, the creation of this film series required patience, rejected ideas, and a bit of creativity. From the Batmobile's many designs to the Joker's terrifying look, let's take a look at the many elements that were cut from the Dark Knight trilogy.
He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector. Dark Knight.
Here's what's also happening in Hollywood today. Batman and Robin rule. The latest adventure in the series pulled in a reported $43 million this weekend.
And boy, was I shocked by the new Batman movie. It's so overproduced. Every scene is so action-filled that the movie does all of the thinking and emoting for us.
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
When Batman and Robin tanked at the box office, Warner Brothers was desperate for a new and fresh take on the character.
We're done when I say we're done.
Many directors came in to pitch their ideas for a Batman film, but it was Christopher Nolan who really caught their attention. Nolan envisioned a version of the character that existed in a grounded world, and this can be seen in the concept art. The fantastical envisioning of Gotham City is now gone, replaced by a dirty and grunge-filled city concealed by smog.
Nomex survival suit for advanced infantry. Kevlar bi-weave, reinforced joints. Tear resistant. This sucker will stop a knife.
Even in this gothic city, Batman stands out. His Batsuit doesn't stray too far from the final look. But you will notice small alterations. The ears on his cowl are thinner and smaller. The mouth opening is wider, showing off more of his jaw, and the bat symbol has a slightly different design. While many of the concepts don't stray too far from the final look, this concept does make a few minor changes. The bat symbol has a drastically different look, harkening back to how it appeared in the Schumacher films. The belt and the pattern on the torso also look much different. These early concept illustrations by Mark Simpson embrace the grounded aesthetic Nolan envisioned. Batman in the illustrations appears to be wearing a traditional cloth-based suit instead of body armor. His cowl also seems to be made of fabric, and his grapple hook appears to be more handheld and practical. Batman in these illustrations leans much more into a grounded take on the character. He's more low-tech and put together when compared to the more militaristic version in the film.
So what do you think? Does it come in black?
We felt that it was very important to design the Batmobile first before we approached any of the other aspects of design of the film, because I had a very specific idea in my head about a contemporary approach to a Batmobile, and our approach to it would tell everybody who saw it a lot about what we're doing with the whole film, which is a more grounded reality in which we're trying to base this story.
When crafting his version of Batman, the Batmobile was one of the first things Nolan wanted to get right, as it would help inform every other grounded element in the film. Nolan had an interesting idea for how his Batmobile would look. He wanted it to be tanky, durable, and heavy-duty, but also sleek, agile, and fast. With this in mind, Nolan made this clay model of the look he was going for, an almost futuristic vehicle that looked both highly durable, fast, and agile. With help from production designer Nathan Crowley, Nolan would turn this mold into a series of miniature models, all with varying differences in their designs. This model was the most rigid. It looks stiff and doesn't appear like it's very maneuverable. A large circular window seems to be at the center of the vehicle, which makes the design stick out. This Batmobile looks much closer to the final look. It keeps the same overall shape and appears a lot more maneuverable than the previous design. The one major difference, however, is the shape and size of the window, which is significantly larger and more apparent when compared to the tiny windows of the original design. Batman Begins was planned as a one-off film, as Nolan never originally intended to make a continuation. However, after the release of The Prestige, Nolan became interested in how a sequel would work, especially how the Joker would operate within this grounded world. When Heath Ledger's Joker design was first revealed, it took many fans by surprise. The design was unlike anything they'd seen at the time. Joker was dressed in filthy clothes, had messy hair, and his white skin was now makeup. Nolan envisioned Joker as a purposeless anarchist, a man without motive or desires for material gain. He's a man with no backstory and no hint of his history. It's as if he was born from chaos itself. This design may be iconic, but it took a long time to get to this final look. Nolan and the production team wanted the Joker to look dirty and unkempt. They looked at illustrations by Francis Bacon as inspiration to formulate their own creepy and unsettling designs. These concepts perfectly embody the Joker's horror factor. There's something unsettling about the way he appears. Whether it's his blackened eyes, scars across his face, or the unnaturally large grin carved into his mouth, the Joker here is also devoid of his white makeup, giving you a glimpse into the man underneath, something we only saw briefly in the final film. Joker clearly has some kind of dark past, one that led to his face becoming deformed in such a horrific way. But we'll never learn about that past, because the ambiguity of his backstory is what makes him so interesting. This design must have been popular, as you can see it in several other pieces of concept art, the only difference being that the Joker's scars have either been toned down or hidden underneath the white makeup. Some concepts don't even give Joker his makeup to begin with. It seems like the artist considered omitting Joker's iconic face paint entirely, with only the purple suit and green hair present. The artists also played around with other designs for the Joker. These ones drift away from the creepy appearance and go for a much more fun and goofy look. The Joker here looks like a traditional clown, especially when you see his big red nose. This concept also plays around with the goofy appearance. He's wearing a shirt that says laugh all over it, an element that's supposed to make him look more interesting. This concept for the Joker is actually pretty accurate to his final look, the only real difference being the scarf, which makes him appear more stylish.
6 years. Don't forget the guy who played the job.
He thinks he can sit it out and still take a slice. I know why they call him the Joker.
The Joker's henchmen are known for their clown masks that have varying unique designs, shapes, and colors. During the development of The Dark Knight, these masks went through a plethora of designs, each reflecting different tones. While many of them take on a fun and playful look with their bright colors and interesting shapes, others take a much darker approach to their looks. Joker's henchmen look sinister, like characters you'd see from the Purge movies. Whatever dark personas these men have are hidden underneath these vibrant masks. Although they look friendly, there's clearly a hidden darkness about them. They come across as more playful demons that find delight in pain and suffering. The eeriness and uncertainty of these henchmen help evoke their fear factor, adding even more to the Joker's playful yet terrifying presence. This poster showcases the Batman copycat hung from a street lamp. This image appears creepy and unsettling. The imposter Batman's suit appears torn and almost appears like a phantom hanging in a desolate city. The imposter Batman's death was included in the final film, and although it took the audience by surprise, this concept is 10 times more ominous. It makes me believe that The Dark Knight was originally envisioned as a much darker film, but was toned down to fit the PG-13 rating.
And the Oscar goes to...
And the Oscar goes to...
Heath
The Dark
Ledger
Knight, Richard King.
With the massive financial and critical success of The Dark Knight, everybody expected Nolan to work on a sequel. However, Nolan was afraid to make another film because generally, third films in a trilogy were often the worst ones. However, Nolan felt obligated to complete his trilogy and thus began work on The Dark Knight Rises with Bane as the main antagonist.
Speak of the devil, and they shall appear.
When designing Bane's mask, Nolan and costume designer Lindy Hemming did not want to use Bane's wrestling mask because they felt it wouldn't work within this grounded world. As a result, they experimented with many ways to ground him in reality. When designing Bane's mask, Lindy Hemming took inspiration from real-life animals like spiders and gorillas. The purpose was to make Bane appear animalistic and raw, but also practical by making his mask appear more put together and industrial. Many of the concepts give Bane a mask that conceals his face. In these two concepts, you'll notice that Bane's face seems to be covered in some kind of black mask with tubes laid on top. This design looks a lot more busy than what we see in the final film. The same can be said for this concept, which once again gives Bane the black mask. However, this time, there are several tubes that seem to inject into his skin. However, once again, this mask may have been too bulky and over-designed to be considered. Many other ideas appear to be embracing a mask that conceals Bane's entire face, and all of them feature interesting approaches to the look. You'll notice that many of them play around with the amount of tubes on the mask and the way in which they are structured. Some are more straightforward and basic as they are easy to follow, while others snake and bend in various interesting and tangled shapes. These concepts really took the industrial steampunk look to a whole new level of complexity, and believe me when I tell you that some of these concepts really embrace the convoluted mess of tubes and metal. Some artists experimented with more fantastical designs. Take a look at this concept illustration. Bane here has a mask that conceals his whole face like in the other concepts, but this time he's been given a giant metallic arm. Bane here looks like he's some kind of Roman gladiator or a character you'd see in a Mad Max film. Later mask designs look much closer to the final film. Bane's mask no longer conceals his entire face, but only a small portion of his upper section. The only real differences are some small design additions and slight alterations to the tubes on his mouth. All these designs eventually led up to this, which ended up becoming the mask that was used in the final film, but you can still notice slight differences, especially when it comes to the placement of the tubes. However, despite already deciding on the look according to this mold, the production team experimented with an alternate design for Bane. This mask doesn't look radically different from the final version, but there are a few design alterations. The look of Bane in The Dark Knight Rises has become iconic among the DC fanbase, but judging by the numerous concept sketches, it took a long time to come up with the final design. When designing Catwoman, Nolan wanted to stay true to her comic look, but also ground her in reality. As a result, Catwoman wears a black bodysuit with only hints of a cat motif, like her goggles that form cat ears. Many of the concepts consist of different designs for Catwoman's mask and goggles. There were many other concepts for Catwoman, but they never strayed too far from what we ended up getting. The same can be said for her black suit, which looks pretty similar to the final version. However, not all the concepts closely resemble the final look. These two concept illustrations are a lot more creative with Catwoman's appearance. The suit is no longer pure black. There are multiple patterns that visually help it stand out. There were other alternate concepts for the film, mostly showcasing different set designs and approaches to scenes. It's sad that many of these concepts couldn't make it into the final film, but it's always nice to look back at the unused ideas and see the many directions this film could have went.